after I think all Kelantan fans want to know what's happened after 1 year you left, maybe about your injury or not continue your contract.
Yeah, so I remember right at the start when everything was going really well and I was enjoying it, and you know, the way that the club was being sold to me, I thought, oh, this is great. It felt very professional, very well run. And then obviously we lost the first league game at home against Berlaku, and then you could slowly see things starting to change and people getting involved. And you know, Marco tried his best, and he's a really good guy, Marco. And obviously there's a lot more to it. It just felt like Zam wanted rid of Marco straight away because he was just expecting that we would win every game. Whereas, you know, Marco was more realistic and there was a lot of tough games. There was a moment where we got beat away at Nigeria. And I think if we'd have won that game, I think that would have really changed the season. And if we'd have won down there, which we should have, I hit the bar, would have made it 2-2. I think that would have really changed the season and made us kick on, because I thought we could have got promoted out of that league. And then the way that things happened with Marco being sacked, and then Rizal came in, who's done a great job. Rizal did a great job when he came in and obviously got them promoted last year.
I think yesterday is a very hot topic, right? One of your friend ups the status, what's happened in Kelantan right now. So you also reply a comment. So maybe what's your opinion about this? This is true?
Yeah, well, for me, obviously, knowing what goes on there and having seen it firsthand, obviously with my contract was a 1 year with a 1 year option. After what happened with the way the club treated me with my injury, I didn't want to stay, didn't want to come back. And then I came back to Malaysia in 2022 for a holiday. And I met up with Zam at one of the games, and he said, oh, would you like to come back? And I said, only if it's done properly. And obviously with the players that have come in over the last few years, import-wise, a lot of good players have come in, and that might not be translated on the pitch, whether it's, you know, players from this year, last year, or my season. You don't come to the country as an import for no reason. You have quality, otherwise you wouldn't be there. So I think a lot of people are quick to judge after 1 game, 2 games. It takes a while to settle in. But if things aren't going right off the pitch, it's very hard. If you're not being paid on time, if you're not living in a comfortable environment, if you're living in one of his hotels, you know, it can be really tough because there's nowhere to cook. So you have to go and find some food next door, which isn't great. And I think it's just a domino effect. We used to face a lot of troubles with, you know, traveling down to games. We'd be on a bus for hours and hours and hours with no food. Then there was one time where one of the management staff, I won't say his name, he said, oh, it's fine, we'll just stop at KFC. And that was the night before a game, and I was, you know, not happy about the fact that we'd have to stop and eat at KFC, when if you look at all the other teams, you know, your Sabahs, your Kedas, your sort of Kuala Lumpur cities, who teams that are similar to Kelantan, you know, they were doing things properly, doing things right, very professional, because, you know, footballers speak to each other. We're not daft. People know what goes on. Like at Kelantan, people talk, people have got friends at other clubs, and it's very well known what's going on. And it's just quite sad to see, really, because the club should be in a lot higher place, especially with the players that they've got. For them to get beat 4 or 5-0 every week, that's not because they've got bad players. They've got some very good players. It's got nothing to do with what's going on the pitch. It's what's going on off the pitch that just makes it completely impossible to play and to want to play. Because why are you wanting to play? There is no desire, there's no motivation to play at the minute, because you're not being paid. You're sort of being held hostage, especially the local players. The import players can cut a contract whenever they want because it's a lot easier. But when it comes to the local players, you know, Shamil saying that they're having to pay 50,000 ringgit to cut a contract. And I think, knowing Shamil, he wouldn't say that for no reason. That's obviously a true fact, because he's linked with other clubs, because he's a good, you know, local striker who does score goals. And I've had the the privilege of playing next to him, and we had a really good partnership, and he is capable of doing that. But it's just it's really sad, especially for the fans, because all they'll see is the results. They'll just see 5-0, 4-0, 4-1, 3-0. They'll just keep seeing that, and it's all I see. And I know obviously they've got players in there who are very good, so it's not a case of, you know, ability. It's what's going on upstairs.
For you, there's any outstanding payment with your old club?
No. I was paid 6 months after I left. I was waiting on insurance money from the club just for my operation. It would always get to a point where you hadn't been paid for 6 weeks, and as it was just getting to the 2-month mark, they turn up with the money. So obviously I understand that the import players earn a lot more than local players, and there's certain things that can happen. And it was tough that year with no fans. But the second year, when the stadium was full all the time and everything was going well on the pitch, it seemed like everything was okay. And then I heard that bonuses weren't paid for winning the league, because I know in my contract there was a bonus for winning the league. So I'm pretty sure the other imports would have had that when they did. And there was a player who's on a 3-year contract, who's in Malaysia at the minute, who's not playing. I think that, you know, they're trying to get it resolved, because there was contracts being offered when the money wasn't there, because the money is from the fans, and now the fans aren't coming in. There's no money available.
So for you now, don't have any debt with your old club, right? Everything settled.
Yeah, everything was settled. Yeah, there's no problems there. I was just, you know, quite sad really to see that the problems they were having, because one of my good friends, Paul, has only just left the club. He's been there for a long time, and you know, he's seen the first year, which was, you know, a development year, and then the second year they did really well, and then this year, you know, to have such troubles that they are having, you know, it's sad to see, because the club deserves to be back amongst it, because I don't see why they can't compete with some of these clubs in and around, you know, the top 6, because they've got everything there with the right guidance, because it is a sleeping giant. People will want to play for that club. People want to, you know, help and do well. It just needs a complete change of ownership and direction.
That Shamil Ghani said yesterday, if you want to terminate the contract, you need to pay, right, 50k. So before this, you sign the contract, have in the agreement?
If I wanted to leave at any point in the contract, I would have just left the country. You see, when we had our season 2021, Mario signed for Newcastle Jets halfway through the season, and he had a 1-year deal. He didn't pay to leave the contract. He didn't do anything stupid like 50,000. He might have just said, "Look, keep 1 month's salary," but he never paid anything stupid. Newcastle Jets didn't buy him. But there is sort of a weird dynamic with Zam, where he thinks it's purely business, and he thinks if, I've paid you, say, 20,000 ringgit, and you leave, you now owe me 20,000 ringgit. It's just something that's, I don't know what his problem is, but the people he's got as well helping him will just say yes to stay on his good side, which is a shame, really.
Okay, before you go to Australia, that any Malaysia team offer you before you come to Australia?
I will, obviously, being out for quite a while, I'd always want to get back into Malaysia. I'd love to play back there again. I spoke to quite a few people to get back out there. Obviously, it's quite difficult, as every year the import players are getting better and better who are coming across. You just look at, you know, Sifu, who signed. You know, Sifu's played La Liga. He's had a really good career, and he's gone to Kelantan. And obviously people expect, just because he's played for a La Liga team and he's done so well, for him to make sure they win 5-0 every week, when it doesn't happen. But because he's such a good player, Sabah saw that, and, you know, they take him on. which has happened obviously with Akinande as well. He's gone to Kelantan United, and obviously I'm sure Mario will get a move because these are good players. It's, you know, like I say, you don't go to Malaysia for no reason. But for me, I'd love to get back there at some point and be able to play there. And yeah, we'll just have to wait and see.
Okay, my last question is what's your words lah to Kelantan's fan, Malaysia fan that always support you, DM you until right now?
Yeah, obviously for me it was quite a crazy time. It was just a shame we never got any real fans. I remember we played PDRM away. We won 2-1, and there was fans outside the stadium. You could just tell that they were just dying to watch and dying to get in. And the problem now that they've got is Bosszam will put a statement out, and a lot of people are torn, and people just want the truth. And that is, the truth is that he hasn't obviously got the money to pay the players. So he needs to bring the money in from somewhere else. And if one player leaves for 50,000 ringgit, that 50,000 ringgit can settle a lot of problems. That's obviously why he said what he said. I think I'd just say for the fans that I think just be patient. I think this year is obviously over. And it's just about trying to rebuild, and just, it needs someone to come in and make the club feel, you know, together again, and get the right person behind the scenes. You know, it doesn't have to be someone with, you know, a billionaire, a millionaire. It might even be the fans who decide to take it on and have a fan-based ran club. But I think just to be patient, and, you know, players come and go, managers come and go, but the fans, you know, the fans are what's important. And hopefully, maybe it's the end of this year or January, the right thing will happen, and Bosszam will move on.